Hey Year 12 and welcome back to Mathematical Mowbray Movies and this short little series of tips and tricks for these trigonometry questions. No fancy new card trick, I showed you the only one that I know. Alright, this one is all about using the right formula. You've seen this diagram many times and I've mentioned it a number of times to you that one of the most difficult things about trigonometry is not being able to put numbers into the formulas, but being able to work out what formula to use in the first place. So as we've said many times, when you get a triangle, you have to say to yourself, is it a right angle triangle or not? If it's a right angle triangle, I'm going to use Pythagoras or SOHCAHTOA. If it's not, I've got to use the cosine or sine rule. So I just wanted to show you on your formula sheet how you could help yourself to remember which way to go about using these rules. So this is the formula sheet that you get. Sorry, so you can see a bit better. So at the top of your formula sheet, you've got all this stuff on right angles, and you can remember because the top of the formula sheet's got this little diagram of a right angle triangle. So this stuff's all for right angles, and it's all the SOHCAHTOA stuff. You can see sine, cos, tan, opposite over hypotenuse. You might want to draw on here just a reminder for yourself. This is adjacent because it's next to the angle. This is opposite because it's opposite the angle. So these ones are for right angle triangles. I would, as soon as you go into your exam, just remind yourself that the other thing that you use for right angle triangles is Pythagoras. So why not just draw another little diagram here and put A, B, C, and a little reminder for yourself. Here's Pythagoras if I'm working out the hypotenuse, and here's Pythagoras if I'm trying to work out a side. Done. Easy. You're not going to get confused. There's your right angle stuff all together. Now you've got the lower part of your formula sheet, which is all about non-right angle triangles. So this is for all the non-right angle stuff. Now the first rule there is the sine rule. I'll just remind you, how do we know which one to use out of these two? Well, you can see that for Pythagoras I need 1, 2, 3 sides. So if I'm dealing with sides only, I'm going to use Pythagoras, whereas SOHCAHTOA's got an angle in it. So if I've got a right angle triangle that's got an angle in there, I'm going to need to think SOHCAHTOA. 2 sides and 1 angle. So just a reminder there. So down to these rules down here. The sine rule. I never use this extra one in the sine rule. I just use these ones. So I need to remind myself, when would I use the sine rule? Well, you can see the sine rule's got 2 sides in it and it's got 2 angles in it. So when will you use the sine rule? You'll use it when you're faced with a situation that's got 2 sides and 2 angles. This one, I don't know why they put this in the middle. It's a little bit funny. I think because it's got sine and you've just done the sine rule. But the other one that you're going to use for sides and angles is the cosine rule, of course. How do you know when to use this one? Well, you can see that the cosine rule's got 3 sides in it. These are the sides as well, so just to double up. And it's got 1 angle in it. So that's when you're going to use it. If you've got a triangle where you've got 3 sides and 1 angle. Remember, you're given the cosine rule in 2 forms. This one is the one you're going to use if you're trying to work out a side because it's got the side as the subject. This one you're going to use if you're trying to work out an angle because it's got the angle as the subject. Again, you might want to do a little reminder for yourself that in all of these triangles, the A, the B, little a, little b, and little c are the sides, and the capitals are opposite those sides. Okay, remembering that the C's are particularly important in this rule. Alright, let's see how we go at a few questions. So here's the questions that I want you to have a think about. Let me just fix that up for you a little bit. So, when you're given, all these triangles look kind of the same, but they all use different rules. So you've got to be able to work out what rule to use. So let's have a look and see if you can. This one here. 3 sides and 1 angle. So I've got to think 3 sides and 1 angle. What rule should I use? Hopefully you can work out. This is going to be the cosine rule. Which form of the cosine rule is it going to be? Well, I'm trying to find an angle, and so I'm going to use the form that looks like cos theta equals a squared plus b squared, all of that jazz. This one here, straight away I can see, oh, right angle triangle. 1, 2, 3 sides. No angles. I'm going to need to use Pythagoras. This question is asking me to work out the hypotenuse, so I'm going to use it in this form. Over to this question. 1, 2, 3 sides and 1 angle. I'm going to need to use the cosine rule for this. What am I trying to find? A side. So I'm going to use the form of the cosine rule that looks like this. A squared plus b squared minus 2ab cos c. The one that kind of looks like Pythagoras. Okay, let's have a look at this one here. I've got 1, 2 sides and I've got 1, 2 angles. So I'm going to need to use the sine rule because that's the one that requires me to use 2 sides and 2 angles. I'm calculating a side, so I'm going to use the form of the sine rule that goes a over sine A equals b over sine B, since that puts the side on the top. This one down here, 1, 2 sides, 1, 2 angles, same. It's going to be the sine rule. But this time I'm working out an angle, so I'm going to write it in the other form, upside down, like this, so that the angles are on the top. Let's jump into this middle one. It's a right angle triangle. My brain thinks Pythagoras or SOHCAHTOA. So I look at this and I say, oh, here's an angle, and I'm asked to calculate an angle. Pythagoras does nothing for us with angles. I'm going to need to think SOHCAHTOA. This is the adjacent side and the hypotenuse, so I'm going to be using cos here. So I'm going to have cos theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So I'm going to need to use the inverse cos function there. Last one here, I'm asked to find the area. Well, when you're given an area question, there's not a whole lot of options. This is the only area formula you know, apart from, just old faithful, half the base times the height. So I'm going to use that formula here. Here's my angle. I remember that I can only use area formula if I've got the included angle, the one between the sides. Here I do, so I'm just going to use that straight out. This will be A, this will be B, this will be my C. Okay? Hopefully you can go all right with identifying which of the rules you need to use. If you can do that, you've already won half the battle. So well done. And remember, the most important tip is practice, practice, practice. Good luck.